be more than human.
Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Joseph Carroll. I write under the pen name J.R. Carroll. And today we are back to Dresden. Now, for you that have been following my Dresden journey here, you will know that we are spoiling everything, right? This is, this is the ninth book. So, yes, if you have not read White Knight, which is the book we are on here, turn back now or forever have it ruined. At this point, we're all just riding the journey together. Either you've just read it, or like me, you might be in the midst of a reread, and we're all just having fun here and geeking out over what might be the greatest fantasy series of all time. So, one thing I noticed, we open up here again, like we have before in the past, with Karen, bringing Harry into a murder scene, and she has been demoted, in this, and Harry's trying to kind of dance around that, but she's like, I'm gonna pay you for coming in and looking at this, and he's like, Karen, Murph, don't worry about it, and and in her typical fashion, she kind of gives him this look, which is like, take it or I'm going to knock your lights out. So he's like, okay, whatever. And he goes in there and it's weird. And, he even describes this as like one of the worst feelings he's ever had coming into a murder scene. And he says, I've been in ones that have smelled worse. I've been ones that looked worse. Much more horrific scenes I've seen. He goes, but this one is a magic practitioner, and there's just this psychic feedback that hits, Harry really hard. Um, and he just kind of has to gets all the information, of course, and he finds out that, there's a famous line, one of the famous like religious lines where he finds kind of concealed on the wall with hidden writing that says like, suffer not a witch to live, or so he's like, oh, is this a religious killing, is this what could this be? And um, as we kind of go through there, and we find evidence that Thomas is involved. We even find pictures eventually of Thomas, you know, uh, you know, walking away with a woman, and uh, Harry eventually finds out um, that there's been something like 30 women in total that have gone missing here. So it's like, oh, we have a serial killer on our hands, is what he says. And now he's starting to question Thomas. He's like, why is Thomas in these pictures? What is going on here? Um, so we find out that one of those ladies happens to work at this, high-end gentleman's club. And of course, it turns out that Johnny Marcone owns the place. Why wouldn't he? And and once he comes into the fold, you kind of get this feeling that it's like, all right, all the main characters are in this, book, except for Michael. You know, however much I want him to be in all the books, it can't always happen. But uh, he goes to Marcone. Marcone's like, hey, this lady worked for you, but she's on my side of the fence. We need to kind of work together, figure out who's doing this. And, Marcone kind of, dances around. He's like, all right, I'll look into it. You know, and so Harry finds this group of, witches or Wiccans or whatever, who are kind of all working together, and not just them. They find out that they're trying to do this across the nation. Um, and Harry's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna, this is probably a good idea for all of you to kind of, the lower level practitioners, to kind of come together, and hopefully you can not be preyed upon as much. But so when Harry's kind of with them trying to figure stuff out in their apartment, freaking apartment gets firebombed, and it's not Harry. He did not start the fire. But with this, we get to figure out a little bit more about Mouse, where Mouse uses this weird bark that Harry says sounds more like a tornado siren. It's like whoa, 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 wakes everybody in the building up, and because we all knew something's not right, right? Mouse is something different. He's not, obviously he's not just a dog, but there's something even more to it. We're starting to find out the Mouse kind of has these, superpowers, and this book, once you start, getting about halfway in the book, you realize that this book is a little bit different than other books. Where most of the Dresden books have multiple storylines running, at least two, and then they kind of combined at the end. Really, there's only one storyline, with this whole book, which, gives you more time for this storyline to flush out, and really, it gives Harry more time to kind of mingle with, Karen and all them, and kind of sort his feelings out with Karen. And we get to find out more about the White Court. This is all about, this, this ends up being kind of a big, it's a white knight, so it ends up kind of being a White Court, vampire, book. And we end up finding out that, through Harry's contacts, he ends up contacting with Laura Wraith, and we find out that, the White Court has actually been, involved, in this, and it's Magical Wraith, and I want to say what the guy's name is, like Vito, Malvora, and then the Scavis, who are also kind of involved. So there's all kinds of different White Court. It's the lust, it's the fear, it's the, what is it, sorrow or something like that. But, and then Dresden ends up back in the deeps, right? Him and we get a lot more of Carlos in this book, which was pretty cool. I mean, he's starting to become one of these characters that you want to see more often. Like his, has that funny, cocky personality. But in this book, as he always tries to come across as a ladies' man, when he first runs into Laura, we find out that he's a virgin, and he's like, he's all, flustered by it, and Harry's got to take a couple jabs at him about it, like, oh, this big ladies man, and Carl's like, shut up, I'll kill you, she's lying, what was one of the great lines, like, she's lying as hell. But then when we end up in the deeps, Harry challenges, Madrigal and Vito to a duel, which it's like everybody's playing everybody. Harry's like, well, I'll act like I'm the cat's paw for Laura and, King Wraith. But then he's also, I'm actually going to take them out, and that's going to help. That's going to help, the different White Court vampires, and it all becomes super crazy. But during the fight, as Jim Butcher does, great fight scenes, of course. But they take down Madrigal, and then they are about to kill Vito, and he opens a portal, and of course it's Cal. Cal. It was hinted earlier in the book that Harry thought that he sensed Cal when he was chasing them around with Little Chicago, but then it's confirmed, and Cal is opening away from the Never Never and launching these super ghouls, and they're just, I mean, it's one of the bloodiest scenes in Dresden history. I mean, these ghouls are eating people that are down there that the White Court's been feeding on, White Court vampires, and Harry has to open. He kind of had this planned, opens a portal, and in comes Marcone and Thomas and Karen, and they're just trying to lay waste to you know all the ghouls and stuff. And throughout this book, this is also a book where Lashiel, who is now Lash to Harry, has been having heavy conversations with her. And basically, at the beginning of this book, when they were first talking, she was still kind of trying to convince him that, he should pick up the coin as always. But he's beginning to convince her that she could be her own entity. He goes, "What if I never pick the coin up? What if I never pick it up? Don't you want to be something other than just a shadow of this terrible fallen angel?" And so we fast forward to the deeps, and she starts slowing down time to like give Harry time to think about how to get out of here. He ends up getting, they, he kind of tells Marcone, "Hey, do you have any explosives? Let's blow this place." Sets up the explosives, and as of course, Harry and Laura get trapped. Everyone else gets back out through, the way, through the opening, but they get stuck. Lash slows down time in his head. Basically, he's thinking faster. And she's like, "Pick up the coin, please pick up the coin. I don't want you to die. I want you to live, and I want to live." And Harry's like, he goes, "I know you can help me. I know you can help me survive this without the coin if you want to." And so, she's like, she goes, "You're gonna have brain damage and stuff." He goes, "Well, that's better than losing myself to the coin." And so she agrees. And so as the ghouls are coming, he senses, he can see that the bomb's about to go off, and he has Laura. He's like, "Kiss me," and she kisses him, and he starts getting all these emotions. He's getting aroused and everything, but he keeps his mind right and uses that energy that he's getting from her to create a shield, because he was pretty much dead with energy, and uses that energy from her to create a shield. And the explosion happens, and they get shot up out of the out of the deep. Everyone dies, and at the end, he rolls up. Laura almost continues kissing him, but then she's all burnt up because Harry still hasn't been with anyone since Susan, and so the true love was still there to protect him. And they have this big kind of showdown. He's like, "Hey, I know it was you sending in the all of this, sending Madrigal towards becoming the serial killer of magical practitioners." And he's like, "If you ever kind of cross this line again, I'm coming for you." And at the end of this, Karen, when a couple days pass, everybody's everybody's in the hospital like they always are at the end of the Dresden books. But Karen's having a conversation, and Harry's like, "Hey, basically, I'm helping Marcone become a free holding lord." Which there's only like 20 of those in the entire world. You got the leader of Monarch Securities, you got Dracul, not Dracula, Dracul, which is his father, he says two dragons, and then a shapeshifter in Ukraine. Timely, right? Um, but now Marcone will be able, and basically Harry's doing this. I mean, it's giving Marcone a higher standing, and he's going to be able to get more power from this. But also now he's going to be obligated to protect Chicago. So Harry's like, as everyone starts coming at us, I'm going to have Marcone to actually help me protect Chicago. Um, but we find out in the end that actually Lash sacrificed her life for Harry. Bob kind of was like, yeah, she sacrificed herself to save your life with that explosion. And it ends with Harry, as he's been working on his guitar work to keep his hands right. He ends up playing a beautiful piece, and we find out, well, that was the last gift that Lash bestowed upon him. His hand is pretty much completely healed at the end of this book. So Harry's finally back to 100%. And the last thing we hear is, Harry's digging up the coin and gives it back to the church. So it looks like Lashiel is no more. And so goes the hellfire that Harry has called upon all the time. But this was an excellent book. It is kind of a flowing, high level book. I really wouldn't put it up in my top 5 or anything, but a great book. What did you guys think? Is White Knight one of your favorites? How are you feeling about about this role with Dresden? And make sure you are subscribed, and I'll see you in the next one.